Hello, Ellie here with my sidekick Davi, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. At the end of December, I told you that the last book I read in 2016 was P.S. I Like You by Kasie West. And that was my first ever Kasie West book, and I enjoyed it so much that in the next 4 weeks, I read 3 more. Instead of doing a video for each one of those, which I would love to do, but they all are kind of similar and I'll be saying a lot of the same feelings towards them, I'm combining them all into one video. So this is my Kasie West contemporary video book talk. So because I am talking about 4 books this time, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to be talking mostly non-spoilers so that if you've read one of them, I don't spoil one of the other books while you're watching this video. Towards the end of the video, I will do my normal spoiler warning and get into some specific details from various books. I'm not going to have a separate spoiler warning for each book, so if there are any of them you haven't read, that's probably going to be the time to stop. I'm going to start with the book that I read in 2016 at the very end of the year, P.S. I Like You. This is actually the only one I have in physical form because I did an audiobook for one of them and I read the other 2 on my Nook. So this is the only book I can hold up right now. I talked a little bit about this in my December wrap-up. I will link that below if you want to check that out. This one is about a girl who gets in trouble for writing lyrics in her notebook and isn't allowed to use her notebook anymore, so instead she writes on the desk the lyrics that are in her head. And the next day it turns out that somebody that sits in the desk as well as her knew the next line to the song, even though it's not a very popular song, and they end up writing back and forth. It is so cute and I just adore this book. Again, I talked about it a little bit in my December wrap-up. If you want to play a fun game, count how many times I say cute in this video. It's going to be a lot. It's just a fun read where you kind of know what's going to happen if you've read a bunch of contemporary books, but it's still so enjoyable. You know that these are going to have happy endings. I have really felt the need to read cutesy books recently because real life has been kind of sucky with everything going on in the world. But they're just so cute. I love the way the relationship builds and then the dynamic between a lot of the characters in here. I can't say much more without getting into spoilers, but I love it. I loved it. I really loved it. I'm just gonna move on because I can't say much without getting into spoilers. The next is actually the one that I did an audiobook for, and in this one, Cayman works at her mom's doll shop, and she actually only goes to school part-time because she needs to work to help her mom. And they live above, and she has grown up believing that because her father was wealthy and left her mother on her own, all wealthy people are evil and selfish and egotistical and not to be trusted. Enter Xander, who is a stereotypical rich guy, but there seems to be some sort of connection. So Cayman needs to figure out if she can go against everything she's ever learned about wealthy guys to see if anything could work out between her and Xander. Meanwhile, there is a guy that her friends are trying to set her up with that seems to be her perfect match on the outside, but who knows? Again, it's so cute. This was one of those books where I was listening to it in my car and I just wanted to get in my car and drive because I was trying really hard not to let myself listen to it when I wasn't in the car or walking Dobby or something because I wanted it to kind of stretch out and I wanted to let the experience last longer. But I wanted to just keep driving places just to let myself listen to this audiobook because it was adorable. I loved the relationship between these characters. It was very much a Romeo and Juliet feel where there are 2 people on opposite sides of the world and they're not supposed to get along, they're not supposed to want to be together, yet they do. There are also some twists and turns that you had no idea would be the case, and there was one extremely shocking thing where it was one of those things where even when it was revealed, I didn't quite believe it, and neither did the character that it had to do with. And then, of course, there were all of those times where the character thinks something, and I was like, no, you're an idiot. That's not the case. Why aren't you trusting yourself? Why aren't you trusting this other person? Which, of course, just makes it dramatic and wonderful. I'm going to move on to the next one before I get into any spoilers. Next, I read The Fillins Boyfriend, and this one I think I read in about 3 days, something like that, while I was doing my final grades, which should have taken over my life, but I couldn't stop reading this adorable story. Again, The Fillins Boyfriend is about Gia, who is super popular, beauty queen type, and she gets dumped right before prom in the parking lot. Meanwhile, there's this guy there that sees this whole interaction, and she convinces him to pretend to be her boyfriend Bradley, to convince her friends that he was real, because they didn't believe he was real. He agrees, and she ends up being intrigued by him, like, why did he agree to do that when it was kind of crazy? And what's going on. So she ends up becoming like obsessed with him. He ends up needing her help to do something similar later. They develop this friendship based on lying about being together on both sides, and I'm gonna say it again, it's so cute. Once again, there are some twists and turns. This one, I don't think there were any super surprises, but I don't know. The no surprises thing isn't a bad thing, because it just means that the story's going the way I want it to go. And I love them all. I love them so much. I do. In this one, the guy, I don't want to give away his name because that's part of the fun of the book, that we don't know his name at the beginning except that he's Fillin Bradley. His sister is a big part of this too. She hates Gia to start with and then becomes a much bigger part of the story. And I love the development of Gia's character, particularly with this one. She goes from this like extremely selfish girl who pretends to have all of these friends but she doesn't really care about them, to actually recognizing what makes a friendship, what makes somebody worth caring about, and what it means to be a friend. I loved it. It was so cute. It was. I know. Don't you agree? It was. It was really cute. I thought that was going to be all for my Kasie West books, and then I couldn't stop. So I read one more. The last Kasie West book I read, and the last contemporary story she has so far, and I'll get to that in a second, was On the Fence. And this one follows Charlie, who is the youngest of 4 children, all brothers, except for her. And she is a total tomboy. She grew up with her brothers and her father. Her mother passed away when she was little. I mean, she's a total tomboy. She's one of the guys. She doesn't know anything about makeup or clothes or anything. When she gets a ticket, she ends up working in a clothing store where she encounters Linda, the store owner, who kind of takes her under her wing, and Sky, who was actually a major character in The Distance Between Us. And I believe this was the only cameo, and Sky's boyfriend was in it too. And we do see a super quick appearance from Cayman, though I didn't even realize it was her at first. I recognized that it was a doll store that they talked about, but I didn't make the connection. And I think it's because that's the one I audiobooked. I wasn't used to like seeing the names. So I saw Cayman, saw Sky, and I was just like, oh, la la la, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't until we met Sky's boyfriend where I was like, oh, that's the one from the other book, okay. Anyway, that was just me being stupid. She ends up having to become more girly, and she even is a tester for makeup so that people can like see how it is. And now she has these 2 lives going on where she's coming into her feminine side at the store, but at the same time, she still just wants to go play sports with her brothers. Obviously, she's like meeting guys that are really interested in her for the first time, but she's also going to the fence where she's talking to the boy next door, who she has always considered her 4th brother. Have I mentioned that these books are really cute? This one did have a couple twists and turns, although the moment you found out there was something kind of not right about the story, I had figured out what the twists and turns were, but that didn't take away from how cute this book was. I think this one was actually my favorite of all of them, but it's also the one I read last and most recently. That could be part of it. I don't know, I loved all of them. I really did. I'm gonna tell you how I rated all of them, and then we're gonna go into there. I think all of them were really like 4.5 stars for the most part, because they weren't like a strong 5 stars. I'd like to reserve those for like literary genius, but they just like made me feel so good that they were just so cute. Anyway, I gave 2 of them 4 stars and 2 of them 5 stars. It was really just whether I felt like I could round up or not, but really they're all around 4.5 stars. These ratings were all kind of based on like my first reaction when I finished, whether I was like, this was amazing and I need to give it 5 stars or not, because like I said, they were all like really close. I gave P.S. I Like You 4 stars. I feel like that was just because I had been really stingy on stars around that time. The Distance Between Us, I gave 5. The Fillins Boyfriend, I gave 4. And On the Fence, I gave 5. I loved all of these books a lot. Yay, one last thing! So this was actually perfect timing for this video because Kasie West's next contemporary book, By Your Side, comes out this Tuesday, January 31st, and I might have already pre-ordered it. So I'm reading that soon. Anyway, I'm going to give my spoiler warning now and get into some specific stuff from the books. If you have not read these yet, read them, please. They are so good. If you enjoy books that just make you feel good, and you know that, yes, there's going to be some drama, yes, there's going to be some sadness in a lot of them, but it's obviously going to work out and it's going to have a happily ever after, read them. They're so cute. If there are any of these books that you have not read yet, go read all of them and then come back and watch the rest, okay? Okay, bye! Okay, I'm not going to get into too much in the spoiler section for this one. There are a couple specific scenes I want to talk about. My brain is immediately going to the most recent one that I read, which is On the Fence, and I want to talk about the moment they were at the fence. It was clear that he was trying to say something that wasn't that he loved her, even though he clearly did love her. I kind of knew. I was like, oh gosh, her mom killed herself, didn't she? That sucks. So there was that. I think my favorite scene in all 4 of these books was that moment. The scene where Brayden, the brothers, and Evan are playing football, and she's in her skinny jeans and wearing a little bit of makeup, and they've never seen her that way before, and he pulls her over, turns her around to face everybody, and flat out says, who would have asked this girl out if they hadn't been threatened by her brothers? And like all of the guys raised their hand, because it shows that she was wanted and she could just be herself and she didn't need to pretend to be somebody she wasn't to get the guy, obviously, because the person that she loved and loved her too was the person that has known her almost her entire life. That one was definitely my favorite of the 4, although I loved all 4 of them. I also wanted to say one of the things that I love the most about On the Fence is by the end, Charlie is able to combine the feminine parts of her that she likes. Like, she grabs a lip gloss at the end and is like, I can still do this, and she has her new style, but she's still who she is. So she's coming into her own in a way that's empowering her, where she can combine the 2 sides of her to truly be herself now, and that was fantastic to see. Gia, I want to talk about when Gia found out that she was really wealthy. That part, I don't know, that part threw me off. I think that was the only thing that actually truly surprised me in these 4 books, where she's at the dinner with Xander and somebody says, oh, are you related to those wealthy people? And he's like, oh yeah, they're her grandparents. And she immediately goes like, oh my gosh, like, he only likes me because he thinks I'm rich. What? Like, this is terrible. I need to tell him the truth. And then it turns out that he was actually right, and those were her grandparents. I was right with her when she was like, well, I still don't want to be with somebody that only liked me because I'm rich. But then I love that he was like, I had already fallen for you before I found out about your grandparents. But yeah, that's why I was so surprised by the way your mother was having you live. I love these books. And I kind of like, they all follow the basic, like, girl meets boy, girl falls for boy, boy and girl have issues and it doesn't look like it's gonna work out. But guess what? Boy and girl are in love and that's all that matters. Yay! Like I said, the spoiler section for this one is super short because, number one, I'm talking about 4 books, and I kind of just feel the same way about all of them and that I love them. I'm super excited for By Your Side, which comes out in 2 days. Yay! And I will talk to you next time.